The galaxy laughed when humans begged for peace. Then they made the mistake of killing our greatest general, on live broadcast. They called it justice. We called it the last straw. The day his ashes scattered through space, Earth didn't send diplomats. We sent a war doctrine written in blood and vengeance. And what came next? Even the stars screamed. The broadcast was supposed to be symbolic. A show of unity, they claimed. A gesture of peace. But the stage was made of lies, and the spotlight burned like a funeral pyre. General Cale Arden stood tall, his dress uniform unblemished, bearing the silver trim of Earth's last war. His voice, calm, practiced, echoed across the ceremonial chamber on Zenthuri Prime, the heart of the Galactic Empire. Every syllable he spoke was a warning wrapped in diplomacy. We offer peace not because we are weak, he said, but because we remember the cost of war. Billions watched live. Diplomats, civilians, soldiers, enemies. The Empire's gilded elites lined the upper balconies in ceremonial robes, expressions unreadable. The High Chancellor still smiled, eyes like wet knives. Arden didn't flinch. But when the floor beneath him began to glow, the speech halted. The moment was off. The interpreter drones paused mid-sentence, confused. Then came the voice, cold, mechanical, piped in through the council speakers in all dialects simultaneously. Verdict: Terran aggression confirmed. Sentence: execution. No trial. No evidence. Just fire. A vertical beam of pure solar induction surged from the dais, swallowing General Arden whole. No scream, no resistance, just light so bright it burned the feed into static. Then silence. A crater of ash and melted alloy marked where a man had stood. The Empire's seal pulsed overhead like a victory banner. The audience didn't breathe. On Earth, millions froze. Some wept. Others screamed at their walls. Children stared at the blank screens, uncomprehending. Governments floundered. But in the mountains of Europa's icebound bunker, one man poured himself a glass of blood-red wine and smiled with only half his mouth. Commander Thorn Kalen Voss didn't mourn. He listened. The encrypted signal came hours later, bouncing through dead satellites and wormholes shadows. A small device in Voss' hand blinked once. Then again. Then held steady. The light was the same frequency as Arden's private command code. The man they'd burned had spoken from the grave. Voss keyed the receiver, eyes narrowing as the file decrypted. Static first. Then Arden's voice, strained but precise. If you're hearing this, I'm gone. They wanted a martyr. Let them have one. But you, Thorn, you're not allowed to die. Not yet. Voss didn't move. The audio continued. They think fire will break us. But fire only teaches us where to strike next. You have full access. Red Veil is open. Do what I couldn't. Do what you were born for. Silence returned. Voss downed the wine, stood, and walked to the far wall of the cabin. A handprint scanner blinked beneath frost. He pressed down. The wall hissed, parted, and revealed a war chest of black steel and obsidian edges. Inside rested a blade older than any treaty, etched with forgotten names. Beside it, a neural drive labeled Operation Bone Chorus. He holstered the blade across his back. You burned the wrong man, Voss whispered. 3 hours later, Earth's Orbital High Command lit red. The Council of Six voted to reclassify humanity's status from compliant member state to autonomous war entity. One by one, the long decommissioned Terran juggernauts, planet-killer warships with AI cores older than most empires, activated across the system. The message to the Empire was clear: no more votes. No more peace. Somewhere in the Scarside Belt, a fleet of mining vessels tore away their disguises, revealing magnetic rail cannon arrays. Near Saturn's rings, sleeper drones detonated, taking with them 2 silent observation moons that had been watching Earth for decades. Voss appeared days later on a hacked broadcast, transmitted across every Empire channel. He stood in full battle gear, face shadowed by the gleam of a plasma torch behind him. His voice was calm. I see. You killed our general. You broadcast it like a message. So here's ours. Behind him, the screen split to show a peaceful Empire colony. Talrix 9. Families, alien children playing. Then, a sharp whistle. A shadow in the sky. 1 second later, the city was gone. Glass. Fire. Silence. Your justice, Voss said, has a memory. So does our grief. This isn't a war. It's the echo of your mistake. The feed cut. And just like that, fear replaced arrogance. The galaxy had long mocked humans. Called them emotional, primitive, warlike. But they forgot what it meant to burn the heart of a people who remember everything. They forgot what it meant when Earth went quiet. General Ardent was not mourned with flowers or statues. He was mourned with a doctrine. Project Red Veil was unlike any traditional war strategy. It wasn't designed to conquer planets. It was designed to break civilizations. Propaganda loops infiltrated Empire feeds. Soft human voices recited Ardent's final words to sleeping minds. Empire soldiers woke screaming. Entire outposts reported hallucinations, seeing ashen mirrors, hearing human cries in their dreams. Others defected, begging for silence. Voss began his campaign not with armies, but with ideas. The kind that left nothing standing. When the Terran fleet finally emerged from Sol's Edge, there were no speeches. No surrender offers. Only coordinates. The first target wasn't a military base. It was the Empire's Grand Archive, a moon-sized station storing cultural history, art, treaties, and memory cores. Earth didn't destroy it. They rewrote it. Billions of historical files were replaced with a single phrase in every language. He stood for peace. You chose fire. We brought war. The Empire's mistake hadn't been killing Ardent. Their mistake was assuming humans would forget him. And Thorn Voss had never forgotten anything. The chamber reeked of ozone and memory. Beneath the mountain of Europa's frozen crust, where the walls were built not from steel but war-forged silence, Thorn Kalen Voss sat cross-legged on polished obsidian. The air around him throbbed, silent updates flooding in from a dozen encrypted relays. Drones floated in formation overhead, awaiting the only voice that mattered now. His voice. The room was lined with ancient Terran flags, not of nations but of campaigns long forgotten. Voss had fought under every one of them. Not as a general. Not as a politician. But as something the Empire didn't even have words for. They once called him cultural exterminator. His response was always the same. I'm not here to erase your culture. I'm here to turn it against you. Now, years after being exiled for ethics violations so extreme even Earth buried his name, Voss had returned. Not with apologies. With activation codes. The message from Ardent played again. Voss didn't need to hear it, but there was something ritualistic about letting it echo across the room. If you're hearing this, they burned me. That means you were right, Thorn. About all of it. Which also means, we have to stop pretending we belong in their club. The words stabbed in reverse. Voss had begged Ardent not to go. Had warned him the Empire would never honor peace, only obedience. But Ardent, noble as ever, thought humanity could prove its place through restraint. Now, there was only dust where his voice once stood. The chamber lights dimmed as the final line repeated. You are authorized. Red Veil is yours. Voss rose without ceremony. He approached the wall, black, flat, unmarked, save for a single embedded retinal scanner. The system recognized him instantly. Commander Thorn Kalen Voss. Clearance Alpha Negative Prime. Red Veil protocols unlocked. The wall hissed and dissolved into air, revealing the nerve center of Earth's most forbidden arsenal. A map of the galaxy bloomed in blood-red projections. Fleets, colonies, data nexuses, each labeled in Terran cipher. All blinking. All waiting. Behind him, a synthetic voice whispered. Orders? Voss replied without looking. Resurrect Ghost protocols. Reinstate the Juggernauts. Begin chorus sequence. Confirmed. Please select primary target. Zenthari Prime, Voss said flatly. I want the heart cut first. He tapped a command pad. The screen shifted, revealing the Bone Chorus, a strategic doctrine the Galactic Accord had banned before it even launched. It was a hybrid offensive, 1 part physical annihilation, 2 parts cultural warfare. Its goal was simple: make the enemy doubt their own identity. Break them from the inside. Use their beliefs as knives. And now it was Terran policy. Voss didn't deliver speeches. He delivered ideas dressed as weapons. On his first day back, he made contact with the Choir, a unit Earth officially never acknowledged. They were memory shapers, data phantoms. Human operatives who could rewrite religious texts on alien planets without firing a shot. Within 48 hours, one Empire vassal state, the Korvathi, collapsed into civil war, sparked by a divine revelation that named Ardent as a long-lost prophesied martyr. The fact that Ardent had never set foot on their world? Irrelevant. The seeds were planted. Voss walked into Earth's orbital war chamber with frost on his boots and thunder in his blood. The Council of Six, visibly shaken, awaited his plan. Half of them had voted to exile him 5 years prior. None of them spoke first. Voss broke the silence. I don't need permission. I need a funeral. The oldest among them, Admiral Trask, cleared his throat. This isn't how we do things anymore, Thorn. Voss stared, eyes ice flat. It is now. A tense pause. Trask leaned forward. You're going to provoke a galactic war. No, Voss replied. I'm going to win one. Trask didn't argue. He simply nodded once and tapped the table. Then may God forgive us. Voss turned to leave. He won't. And we shouldn't ask. 3 hours later, the Terran juggernauts rose. Floating leviathans of war, each capable of raising moons, their AI minds had been asleep since the Jupiter Accords. Now awakened, they began speaking in tandem across human military bandwidths, their voices fused into one. Command received. Vengeance acknowledged. Strategic conversion from restraint to extinction protocol initiated. Across human space, war factories lit up. Satellites redirected. Civilian ships refitted into stealth bombers. The peace was dead, and humanity wasn't just coming for justice. They were coming to rewrite the rules of war. In a pressurized launch bay above Mars, Voss personally briefed the first choir, a team of linguistic saboteurs trained to implant memory phrases into alien populations using song, prayer, and grief stories. They wore no insignia. Only silver bands on their fingers with the name Ardent engraved across the inside. Voss paced before them slowly, his voice quiet but hard. You won't kill with guns. You'll kill with ideas. You'll bury doubt in their children. Make their mothers whisper our grief in lullabies. If even one generation questions their empire, we've already won. A young operative raised a hand. What if they surrender early? Voss didn't hesitate. Then we remind them they murdered peace. And tell them forgiveness died with General Ardent. He paused, then added. And we let them live just long enough to teach their children why we came. The choir nodded. Elsewhere, Voss began reactivating sleeper colonies, hidden Terran outposts seated inside Empire space. Some were disguised as cultural research labs. Others as embassies. All were weapons now. He transmitted a 2-word command to each. Ash Protocol. The message was received. The countdowns began. And on the outer edges of Empire territory, strange broadcasts started bleeding through known networks. They were brief. Flickering. Some only static. Others, a child's voice saying. Peace was offered. Peace was burned. Most ignored it. Then came the first fire. An Empire fleet sent to suppress a suspected rebel world encountered nothing on approach. No resistance. No signals. Just an empty station broadcasting Ardent's last speech on loop. They docked. Within minutes, their communications went black. Recon teams entered the facility. And found the walls lined with human bones. Clean. Arranged. Each marked with a name. Every name matched a fallen Terran soldier from Ardent's last campaign. Voss watched the report from a secure chamber beneath Earth's surface. A commander asked him if he wanted to confirm retaliation. He shook his head. "This isn't retaliation," Voss said. "This is the sermon." And outside, Earth's guns began to roar. The Empire's border worlds didn't fall like cities. They fell like secrets. Voss stood on the deck of the Scourge of Memory, the first juggernaut to fire in 80 years. The ship didn't hum. It whispered, thrumming with purpose and history. Beneath his boots, the crew moved like ghosts, their faces half lit by red tactical glow. Every motion was sharp, practiced. Not a single one had asked why they were doing this. They all watched the broadcast. They all saw Ardent burn. Outside the viewport, the sky was folding. Reality snapped and uncoiled as Earth's black hole skipping drives twisted time. The Empire's outer defense grid had calculated arrival within standard orbital approach, predictable, honorable. Humanity didn't arrive like guests. It arrived like an equation rewritten in blood. The first strike was not nuclear. That would have been expected. Instead, Voss authorized the Seraphim Protocol, an attack of thought, not steel. On the outermost colony of Viriantel, broadcast towers suddenly lit up. Voices filled the air. Not Terran. Not alien. Something in between, an impossible hybrid language composed of Empire dialects and Old Earth tongue. Designed not to inform, to infect. The frequency hit the speech centers of hundreds of species differently, triggering confusion, shame, grief, emotions that had no words in their native tongues but made them weep just the same. Children hid from their own mothers. Leaders screamed nonsense in parliament halls. Soldiers forgot their commands and stood paralyzed on battlefields. In less than 5 hours, the colony collapsed. No bullets. No bombs. Just guilt and memory and confusion. Voss watched the telemetry with the calm of a surgeon. "That was a whisper," he said. "Now let's teach them what a scream sounds like." The juggernauts opened fire on the relay stations orbiting Aurelis Prime. Not with kinetic weapons, but with gravitic shells engineered to detonate with resonant identity collapse. Each explosion sent cascading memory shocks across systems, rewiring the sensorium of anyone watching. For one terrifying moment, entire populations believed they were human, reliving Earth's history, its wars, its genocides, its regrets. Some species tore out their own implants. Others dropped dead from the neural crash. It wasn't just a war. It was a broadcast. Voss addressed the Empire from the bridge of his flagship. The signal was hijacked through 16 layers of military encryption, beamed directly into the Galactic Senate's inner chamber, where leaders sat in stunned silence. He stood in armor-stained matte black, visor raised, eyes unblinking. "You built an empire on obedience. We built a civilization on memory. You executed a man who begged for peace. Now you face a people who no longer believe in it." Behind him, the Terran flag billowed in artificial wind, 3 silver stars over crimson flame. "We will not take your planets. We will not enslave your species. That's your way. Our way is simpler. We teach. And your grandchildren will tell horror stories not of monsters, but of humans who remembered their dead too well." The feed cut. Empire news channels collapsed under the weight of counter-narratives. Humans weren't framed as aggressors anymore. They were becoming myths, gods of vengeance, ghosts with teeth. Whole species began switching sides. Some didn't defect. They simply stopped fighting. The Empire tried retaliating at Jericho Fold. Sent 3 fleets. Voss had predicted it down to the second. When the enemy ships arrived, they found no human forces. Only a single probe. Inside it, a recording of Ardent's last speech. Not the one from the summit, but one given years ago, to cadets, unearthed by Voss and weaponized. "One day, you will serve among the stars. And they will mock you. They will call you emotional, reckless. But remember, our blood writes history. And history always bleeds before it's read." That speech looped until the enemy ships turned back, their crews unwilling to be part of whatever came next. But not all Empire loyalists crumbled. The elite Thrallor Warbound launched a counterstrike on Earth's forward command, hitting the moons of Saran Delta. They came armed with planet crackers and elite psychic officers designed to manipulate human perception. They expected soldiers. They found operas. Earth had seeded the moons with drone orchestras, machines that played back death songs written in sonic frequencies tailored to Thrallor's ancestral fears. The music triggered instinctual memories buried in their genetic code, sounds designed to resemble their species' mythic end-time trumpets. The Warbound stopped mid-approach. Half turned on each other. The rest killed themselves. Voss read the casualty reports and scribbled one word in his command journal. Note: music is faster than light. Still, the true counterstrike came silently. The Empire launched an assassination program, Project Decapitate, using cloaked drones coded to hunt Voss himself. It was clever. Precise. Brutal. They found his shadow near the edges of Tau Thren's black nebulae. Or they thought they did. Instead, they triggered a fail-safe. Voss had long since stopped being in any one place. His consciousness was partially mirrored in Valkyrie, the Terran war AI who now spoke in patterns only Voss could decode. When the assassins breached what they believed was his command bunker, they found it empty, except for one phrase carved into the floor in 17 languages. "We told you we learn." The next morning, the Empire's central communications grid failed. Not from an EMP, not from a virus. From doubt. Engineers refused to repair systems. Technicians reported hallucinations. Logisticians quit. No one knew what was real anymore. Voss finally addressed Earth's own people again, first time since Ardent's death. He spoke not as a commander, but as a mirror. "We were mocked for our weakness. We were punished for our peace. But we were forged in fire before the stars even noticed us. We are not coming for territory. We are coming for truth. And truth does not apologize." The broadcast went viral. Not by force. By faith. Empire citizens began repeating the words in hushed tones. Truth does not apologize. Truth does not kneel. Truth does not forget. Voss turned off the feed and stared out at the stars, not in triumph, but in calculation. There were still inner worlds to reach. Still strongholds untouched. But the most dangerous weapon had already landed. It wasn't ships. It wasn't soldiers. It was the idea that humanity could not be erased. Not by fire. Not by fear. Not anymore. Zenthri Prime was burning before the first shot was fired. Not in flame, but in fear. Its skies, once blue with manufactured weather, had turned a dull crimson as the Terran fleet entered orbit, silent, lightless, and utterly still. Like tombstones drifting in formation. Above the Capitol Tower, the Empire's crest flickered, then shattered into static. The people below stared upward. No sirens. No orders. Just a growing certainty that the future would never resemble the past. In the command chamber of the lead juggernaut Scourge of Memory, Thorn Kalen Voss watched through a projection window, arms behind his back, eyes locked on the planet that had swallowed General Ardent. Beside him stood Valkyrie, Earth's war AI given synthetic voice and a personality model drawn from Earth's most infamous war poets. She whispered, "Local resistance minimal. Orbital defense stations abandoned. Civilian comms overloaded with prayer tones." Voss didn't blink. "They're not praying for salvation. They're apologizing to ghosts." Valkyrie tilted her head slightly. "Estimated casualties if we deploy standard subjugation force?" Voss replied. "Too merciful." The command crew held their breath. They'd followed Voss into the dark. Now they stood at the edge of something deeper. "Prepare chorus cannon." A murmur rippled through the chamber. The weapon had never been tested. Not because it couldn't be, but because it wasn't meant for destruction. It was meant for memory. From the underbelly of Scourge, a black spire unfolded, humming at frequencies higher than biology could comprehend. It fed on stored voices, Earth's grief, Ardent's final breath, and 1,000 battlefield eulogies whispered over the centuries. Not synthesized. Preserved. Down on Zenthri, every screen lit up at once. Every speaker hissed. And then it began. A voice. Ardent's voice. Not from the day he died, but from a quiet morning 3 years before, reading aloud the names of fallen cadets under his command. No anger. Just reverence. He had done it every week. Without fail. It played now across Century. An alien mother dropped her groceries and fell to her knees, not understanding the words but feeling them all the same. A senator gripped the edge of his table as he saw images, flashes of Earth soldiers carrying their wounded, not with triumph, but with ceremony. A merchant wept in silence, unsure if he was mourning someone he'd never met. And then the voices changed. The cadence became foreign. The chorus became familiar. Because Earth had translated it, over 10,000 dialects played in synchronization, adjusted to resonate with every known species' ancestral memories. The voice didn't accuse. It didn't demand. It remembered. And the weight of that memory cracked the planet. Empire forces opened fire, not on the Terrans, but on themselves. Some officers screamed about voices in their heads. Some surrendered. Others broke formation and fled. One planetary defense general shot himself live on Empire broadcast, saying only, "I see his face when I close my eyes." Voss turned from the window and nodded. Begin drop. Steel rained from orbit, not missiles, but monoliths. Towering black obelisks inscribed with the etched names of every Terran civilian killed in Empire strikes since first contact. 7 million names. Each monolith had only one phrase at the base in every language. Peace was offered. Peace was burned. The monoliths embedded in plazas, in deserts, in oceans. They emitted no radiation. No threat. Just a repeating transmission of Ardent's final words before Zenthri killed him. "We came with open hands. And you gave us fire. But fire only teaches us how to burn brighter." Back in orbit, Valkyrie ran the models. Zenthri High Command has fractured. 8 of 11 regional governors in hiding. Religious networks are fracturing, multiple planets now declaring Ardent a martyr saint. Voss didn't smile. Good. Let belief spread faster than bullets. The signal came an hour later, high priority, encrypted on dead Empire channels. It was from High Chancellor Tsil. Voss opened it in private. The screen flickered to show the Empire's supreme leader, bloodshot, sweat-soaked, trying to appear composed. He spoke first. "You've made your point, human. Zenthri is yours. What do you want?" Voss stared, unblinking. "You think this is about territory?" Tsil swallowed. "Then what?" Voss leaned forward. "You burned our general alive. You didn't kill a man. You killed what we could have become." Tsil scoffed. "Do you want me dead?" Voss shook his head. "I want you alive long enough to remember this." He sent a data file. Tsil opened it. His face strained of color. Inside were Empire Command override codes, his override codes. Stolen during the broadcast. Voss had every kill switch, every failsafe, every backdoor into the Empire's fleets. They were obsolete now. He'd used them to make the dreadnoughts betray each other in orbit. But the message was clear. "I took your teeth," Voss said. "Now you'll learn to live with your gums bleeding." Tsil stammered. You can't rule the Empire through fear." Voss stepped into frame fully. "I don't want to rule it. I want it to confess." He closed the transmission. By nightfall, Earth's fleets were gone. No occupation. No chains. Just silence, statues, and the echo of a name turned sacred. Back aboard Scourge, Valkyrie spoke again. "Signal intercepted. Deep space array. Unknown origin." Voss raised an eyebrow. "Empire?" "No," she said. "Something beyond. Something watching." Voss paused. "Let them look," he said. "Let them see what happens when peace is murdered in public." He turned back to the window, watching as Zenthri flickered behind him. "And let them wonder who we'll become when we stop asking to be heard." The wind on Agar 6 didn't come from nature. It howled through the fractured bones of monuments once carved by the Empire to celebrate its conquests. Now they lay in ruins, their stone torsos missing heads, their names scratched off by trembling hands. Where once stood the emblem of eternal sovereignty, there now rose a black monolith, humming softly beneath the twin suns. Voss stood before it, alone but watched. Surveillance drones circled in secret. Disguised ships loitered in upper orbit. He knew. He didn't care. The monolith's surface bore no symbols of victory, no planetary flags, no threats. Just a list of names. The etched letters glimmered faintly: civilians, diplomats, children. Not heroes. Not soldiers. People. Every one a record of what the Empire called acceptable collateral. Behind him, Valkyrie shimmered into presence as a hard light avatar, wrapped in the silhouette of ancient armor. "We're being watched," she said. "I want them to watch," Voss replied, eyes never leaving the stone. "Let them study the aftermath. Let them measure the silence. Third-party transmission detected. Not Empire. Not Accord. Unknown signal vector, non-standard waveform. Origin? Outside mapped galactic space." Voss breathed in. The air smelled like metal and guilt. He turned, slowly, facing the wind and the monolith at his back. "Let it through." The air shimmered. A voice, distorted by physics, bled into their auditory field. It was both male and female. Ancient and curious. "You are human?" Voss answered without hesitation. "We are what's left after mercy is mistaken for weakness." Silence. Then, "Your campaign disrupted the Accord." "No," Voss said. "It clarified it." "Your species grieves with rage," the voice said. "You retaliate not with occupation but with memory." "Why?" "Because you can rebuild buildings," Voss said. "But you can't rebuild trust. The Empire lit a fire they thought would scare us. Instead, we learned how to burn." Valkyrie tilted her head. "Signal is duplicating. 3 points of origin now. All off map." Voss narrowed his eyes. "They're triangulating." The voice returned, colder now. "You escalated past proportionality. You used grief as a weapon." "I used truth," Voss said. "They used spectacle. We answered in language they understood." Another silence. Then, faintly, "Your kind does not behave as projected." Voss chuckled. "Neither did the stars when we lit them on fire." The wind picked up again. Valkyrie pulsed with soft blue light. "They are observing our tactical profiles," she said. "Reconstructing your emotional telemetry. Likely prelude to judgment." "Let them judge," Voss said. "But make sure they hear this." He turned back to the monolith and stepped forward. Cameras adjusted. Satellites shifted. Half the quadrant tuned in. He placed his hand on the name of a girl. 6 years old. Killed in an orbital strike during a food shipment protest. She never held a gun. Never cursed an alien. Her only crime was being small in a war too large to see her. They never said her name. So we carved it here. And we carved 10 million more. The monolith flared in response. The light pulsed outward like a heartbeat. "These are not trophies," Voss continued. "These are warnings." Another signal came through, this time from Earth itself. The Solar High Council. Encrypted. Urgent. Voss. Fleet Command requests status update. Empire remnants have offered full surrender. He didn't answer immediately. Valkyrie looked at him. "We can end this. Wrap the narrative. Claim diplomatic victory." "That's not what Ardent would have done." Valkyrie blinked. "What would he have done? He would have told the galaxy we forgive them. And then he would have made damn sure they never forgot why they needed forgiveness in the first place." Voss keyed a response. "Tell Fleet Command to stand down. No parades. No signatures. Just this." He pointed to the monolith. "Leave one of these on every world that ever called us monsters." Valkyrie processed the order. "Protocol Red Veil is now complete." Voss nodded. Then open the next file. Which one? He looked at her, and his voice dropped. Project Dust Light. She hesitated. That protocol was never approved. Neither was Ardent's execution. For a long moment, the AI said nothing. Then, acknowledged. Project Dust Light unlocked. Far across the stars, quiet vessels awoke in dead systems. Invisible colonies powered up black sites older than any official Terran registry. Ships with no names, crewed by operatives born in secret, set course for borders no map acknowledged. Back on Agar 6, Voss stood at the edge of the ridge, watching the monolith. The children of the colony had gathered. Quiet, wide-eyed, unsure of who he was or what the black stone meant. Voss knelt down, met their gaze. It's not a weapon, he told them. It's a mirror. One boy touched the base and whispered, Was he your friend? Voss smiled faintly. He was better. He was our conscience. The boy looked at the names. Why so many? Because the Empire forgot what it means to count the dead. A long pause. Then the child asked, Will you leave now? Voss stood. No. But our armies will. But won't they come back? He looked up to the sky. If they do, they won't recognize this world anymore. It'll be something else by then. Something better. The boy frowned. How do you know? Voss said. Because fear teaches nothing. But memory? Memory never stops teaching. He turned from the ridge, cape fluttering in artificial wind, and gave Valkyrie a nod. They began walking back toward the lander, toward silence, toward a future neither could fully name. Above them, for the first time in centuries, the stars felt quiet. Not peaceful, but watching. And in the void beyond the mapped galaxy, unknown civilizations whispered amongst themselves, recording, calculating, uncertain whether humanity was the end of something, or the beginning of something far worse. But one message was clear across every sensor, every relay, every listening post. Earth had spoken. And the galaxy would never again pretend not to hear.